On today's show, Alperen Sengun is named Western Conference Player of the Week. Plus, we take a look at the Houston Rockets statistically through the quarter mark of this NBA season. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Thursdays. Be sure to follow along wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets, where the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop us a comment while you're there. Just do a drive-by, say Go Rockets. It helps us out a ton. Also, be sure to subscribe to the new daily Locked On Rockets newsletter. I would sincerely appreciate it. Now, today's episode is sponsored by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you so much for being one of our incredible everydayers. A lot to get to in today's episode. Alperen Sengun named Western Conference Player of the Week.
Hey, Houston fans, I am so happy.
We'll also take a look at where the Houston Rockets stack up statistically through a quarter the quarter way point of this NBA season, how they compare to some of the other upper echelon competition. The Rockets themselves are upper echelon competition at this point of the season. How real is it? Get into some of those numbers, as well as we'll take a look at the final NBA Cup group play game against the Sacramento Kings, how the standings look, the different outcomes and scenarios, plus a little bit of news about one De'Aaron Fox, a guy that the Rockets absolutely have on their radar. A lot to get to in today's show. Let's start with the awesome news that Alperen Sengun has been named Western Conference Player of the Week. The Rockets went 3-0 last week. They had the 2 overtime wins, first against the Wolves in cup play, then second night of a back-to-back against the Philadelphia 76ers. And then last but certainly not least, they had the game at home against the OKC Thunder on Sunday evening at Toyota Center. And the Rockets went 3-0 in those games. Alperen Sengun across all 3 games averaged 21.3 points, 12.7 rebounds, 9 assists, and about a steal and a block and a half per contest. He averaged a 20-point double-double in all 3 games, which is tied for the longest streak of his career. He had his 3rd triple-double of the season in the OT win against the Minnesota Timberwolves. And right now, this is the best start to a Houston Rockets season since the 2017-2018 campaign. Rockets currently sitting at 15-6 in the standings. The 2017-2018 squad with James Harden and Chris Paul went 17-4 in their first 21 games. So some elite company to be in the presence of. And right now, for the season, Sengun is averaging 18.8 points per game, 10.9 rebounds, 5.3 assists, and a little over a steal and a block per contest. Historically, Sengun is currently, a part of a list of players who have averaged 18 points, 10 boards, 5 assists, 1 steal, and 1 block per game. And that list includes Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Charles Barkley, Larry Bird, DeMarcus Cousins, Joel Embiid, KG, Kevin Garnett, Bill Walton, and Chris Webber. He would be the 10th player all time to record this stat line for an entire season if he keeps this production level up. Those are some elite names to be mentioned alongside with, and you look at those names in that list, I think every single one of those names on that list could be very much considered a two-way force in one capacity or another. Maybe, you don't look at necessarily Barkley and Cousins as two-way force kind of guys or like elite defensive players, but they were elite rebounders. They held their own defensively. So, but every other name on that list, absolutely elite two-way presence guys that got it done on both sides of the floor. And that's what it's showing up right now statistically for Alperen Sengun, the way that he's able to impact the game on both sides of the floor. Look, this is a great little This is a great little honor for Alp. It's only his second time being selected for Player of the Week honors, and it's it's exciting because what it does is it provides a little bit more of a national spotlight on the Houston Rockets. When you play in primetime games on national TV, when you receive NBA awards, whether it's Player of the Week, Player of the Month awards, that kind of stuff, it exposes this team to maybe the more casual fans, maybe people who aren't paying enough attention to what the Rockets are ultimately doing this season. And the Rockets need that, right? From a marketability standpoint, from a notoriety standpoint, right? Like, it's cool being the underdogs and it's cool kind of flying under the radar at times, but it's time for people to start taking notice of what the Houston Rockets are doing this season. And Alperen Sengun has been the engine that churns the success of this Houston Rockets team. You're going to start seeing it. Like, national media is hopefully going to start raving about the Rockets. The Rockets definitely deserve quite a bit more national media attention than what they've gotten so far this season. And as long as they keep the winning up, as long as they stay locked in and stay one of the top teams in the Western Conference, then you're going to start to see more and more national media stories written about the Houston Rockets. You're going to start to see the Player of the Week, Player of the Month awards start kind of rolling in a little bit. And that's exciting stuff for Rockets fans, right? After being just absolute cellar dwellers for the last, 3-4 years, and even last year, as exciting as it was to go 41-41, right? They were just a scrappy, trying to make the play-in kind of team. They still didn't get ultimately much recognition. And so this is hopefully the first little stepping stone in the path of the Houston Rockets getting some of that media attention that they ultimately deserve for how well they're playing. And not just media attention, but fan attention as well, right? Alperen Sengun should become an absolute household name with the level of play that he's putting forth this season. And that's minus his kind of rough start to the year, which is something we're going to tackle here. We're going to discuss in just a moment as we take a statistical look here at the Houston Rockets. But excited for Alperen Sengun, excited for this Houston Rockets team, and yeah, well-deserved honor for Alperen Sengun here.
Okay, Alperen Sengun.
Coming up, want to get into a statistical look at where the Houston Rockets stack up through the quarter mark of this NBA season. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. So what is Prize Picks? It's the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. And look, Prize Picks puts their members first. So with all withdrawals, they're fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Plus, Prize Picks is the only place that invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out your lineup if it isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't actually hit. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play your first $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get your $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app, use code LOCKEDONNBA, and get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. Run your game. Today's episode is also brought to you by Game Time. Look, when it comes to buying tickets, you've got to use Game Time. It is the best ticket buying experience on the market right now. Whether it's to go to a Rockets game, whether it's to go to a concert, theater event, whatever's happening near you, the tickets are going to be available on Game Time, and you're not going to have a better experience anywhere else. They've got their Game Time picks to filter out the fluff to only show you incredible deals on great seats, but that's not the only feature that they have that's amazing. They've got their ticket covers, their lowest price guarantee, views from your seat, so you know exactly what to expect when you get to your venue, which, hey, a lot of us, we might be accustomed to the view at Toyota Center going to Rockets games, but if you're going to a concert or a play or something, it's nice to know what you're getting yourself into before you get there. My personal favorite, their all-in pricing feature. When you download the Game Time app, you toggle on the all-in pricing feature. They're fully transparent from start to finish, so you know exactly what to expect out of your ticket buying experience. No hidden fees, no surprise little price gouging fees or any of that. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, there are a handful of different statistical areas that I want to take a look at for this Houston Rockets team a quarter of the way through the season. But since we just finished talking about him, let's double down and keep the Alperen Sengun discussion going here for just a moment, because I mentioned this the other day in our episode talking about the win against the Thunder, and I wanted to circle back and highlight it because aside from Sengun is having a phenomenal season, right? He's elevated his defense. He's playing, defense at a level I don't think many thought was possible for him previously in his career. He's making an impact on that side. He's rebounding at the highest rate of his career. He's facilitating well. He's doing all the things that you want him to do for this Rockets team. The one thing he's not doing is finishing at the rim. His shooting percentages are just down across the board when you look at his shot profile and how he's converting in and around the rim. So I wanted to run through these numbers really quickly because I do expect Sengun to turn this around. I don't know if it's a touch issue. I don't know if it's a strength issue because he put on so much strength this past offseason, right? He really worked on his core of his body. He's in the best shape of his career. And for him, right, when you add strength, it does mess with your shot mechanics a little bit, right? Like shooters have experienced this in the past. When you add strength, when you add bulk to a guy who's like a long distance 3-point shooter, specialist, whatever, it can be tough to adjust and make sure you get that touch exactly right back to where you're accustomed to it being. And we know that Sengun is a guy that has such a soft touch historically around the rim that maybe that extra little bit of strength that he came into this season with has messed with his touch around the basket a little bit. Not trying to make excuses for the guy. He just needs to flat out be better, but I'm sure that he'll get back to where he's been historically. We've got 3 seasons of data to suggest that he's a much better finisher in and around the rim. I don't think he suddenly just forgot how to shoot layups, but the numbers, not great so far this year. Let's run through them really quick. Alperen Sengun shooting at the rim. We're just going to compare last season's numbers to this season's numbers. Last season shooting at the rim, 69%. Nice. This season shooting at the rim, 57%. Not great. That is a 12% drop in shots directly at the rim. Shots between 3 to 10 feet, so his little push shot, or when he's taking fadeaways just outside of the just away from the rim or whatever. Last season he was shooting 49.5%. This season 44.5%. So a 5 percentage point drop there. He's shooting about the same from 10 to 16 feet, give or take. And then we won't worry about the outside shooting. He has taken a dip there as well. Unfortunately, last season, the 3-point shooting just under 30% this year, just under 26%. So another significant drop there. It's the shot types too, though that are kind of weird. So last season, he was 86.5% on dunks. This year, 77.8% on dunks. Last season, on his little hook shots, 48.5%. So this is the one area he's actually shooting better on his hook shot this season, 51%. So that's encouraging to see. His jump shot number last season, 42% compared to 38.5% this season. And then this is the big one. On shots recorded as layups, he shot 60.7% last season. This year, he's shooting 48.9%. So about an 11-ish% drop in his ability to just literally convert layups at the rim. It really is that simple. Like if Alperen Sengun had last season's efficiency numbers, I'm telling you right now, he'd be an MVP candidate right this moment. He's already on the MVP tracker list. Like he's like you look at some of the websites that have like the top 15, top 10 MVP tracker list as far as production and BPM and all those advanced metrics. And Sengun's on some of those lists right now. But the lack of efficiency, especially around the basket where he gets, most of his shots, that's absolutely killing him this season. Hopefully he turns around, continues to build on it. But he's still finding ways to impact the game at a very high level despite the offensive inefficiency. And he's also still showing up when it matters most at the end of games, in the fourth quarter, in overtime, taking over at the tail end. So that's exciting stuff to see there. All right, let's get into some of the team-wide statistics. So through 21 games of this season, the Houston Rockets currently rank second in the NBA in defensive rating. The only team ahead of them are the Oklahoma City Thunder with a defensive rating of 103.6. The Rockets right behind them with a defensive rating of 104.3. And then behind the Rockets is the Orlando Magic with a defensive rating of 104.5. Those are your three best defensive teams in the association. And then there is a considerable drop from the top three to the fourth best team, the LA Clippers, at a defensive rating of 107.7. So a kind of a significant chasm there between the top three defensive teams and then the teams thereafter. And if you, a quick refresher here, we did our Locked on Rockets board bets coming into the season. And one of the questions I asked was, where will the Houston Rockets rank defensively this season? And the two options were top 5 or 6th or lower. And 54.1% of y'all selected 6th or below. Shout out to everybody who doubled down and picked top 5, that they could be a top 5 defense this season. They did it. They doubled down. And they've been one of the best defenses in the association all year long. And I fully expect them to be able to keep up that production. It's not like last year where it felt like maybe the Rockets had some three-point shooting luck against certain opponents, as well as, they wore down a lot quicker because they really had to rely, they really had to rely on Dillon Brooks a lot every single night. Having Amin Thompson and Tari Eason, being able to flesh them out more in the rotation this season, it's helped keep the Rockets defenders fresh over the course of a game. I don't see them wavering. I think they'll continue to be a top 2, top 3 defense all season long and maintain that defensive production. On the other side of the court, the offensive side, the Houston Rockets, middle of the pack team currently, sitting at 15th in the NBA, which is a better improvement than where they were last year, right? Last year, they finished the year, I believe, either 20th or 22nd, 23rd, somewhere around there. They were top end of the bottom 10 teams in the NBA offensively. They've since improved that, and we still haven't seen a Rockets team that's been able to play very efficient offensive basketball. They're still a bottom 4 team in effective field goal percentage so far this NBA season. They have an effective field goal percentage of 50.2. That is atrocious. The only teams worse than them right now, literally the teams around them, Rockets are 27th. The Wizards have a better effective field goal percentage than the Rockets do, which is kind of embarrassing. And the only teams worse than the Rockets are the Blazers at 28th, the 76ers at 29th, and the Pelicans, who don't even have an NBA roster at this point, at 30th. So the fact that the Rockets have such a terrible offensive efficiency, and yet they're still 15th in the NBA, speaks volumes about what they've been able to do, forcing turnovers, using their defense to create offense, using their rebounding, right, their second chance points, leading the NBA in those statistical categories. It's helped offset some of the inefficiencies of their offense to this point this season. Want to give a quick shout out, though, to good friend of the program, Roosh Williams, and Frank over at Rockets Chop Shop, who were kind of discussing the Houston Rockets through a quarter-way point of this season. And Roosh brought up a great point that I want to highlight here as well. There's a very small gap between where the Rockets are at currently at 15th in offensive rating, 112.5, to realistically being somewhere in the back end of the top 10, because you get to the 10th rated team, it's the Thunder currently, but their offensive rating is only 113.7. So only 1.2 points better than the Houston Rockets currently. And then you can go a little bit higher up, right? The Warriors 114, the Kings 114.2. There's not really, it's not until you get to like the top 6 teams, right? Denver Nuggets at 6th with a 115.7, and then the top 3 teams are kind of in a tier of their own, the Knicks, the Cavs, and the Celtics in that order, as the 3 best offenses in the NBA, 121.1, 120.8, and 120.3. So unlike the defensive side of things, where the Rockets are a top 3 defense with a massive chasm between those 3 teams and the rest of the teams trying to catch up and be at the top of the list, the Rockets aren't that far off from also being a top 10 offense. It's literally a 1.2 points per 100 possessions difference. And you couple that with, again, the fact that the Houston Rockets so far this season have shot horribly from outside. In fact, I want to double check where their 3-point shooting numbers are currently. I doubt that it's improved a ton. The Rockets are still the 5th worst shooting 3-point team in the association right now, shooting 33% per game from downtown. That's not great. Again, the only teams worse than them are the teams that we literally just mentioned. The Pelicans, the 76ers, the Wizards, one of them, and then the Magic, actually. Another. Magic and Rockets are in the very same boat right there. Absolutely elite smothering defenses that demoralize you. They out-physical you, all that stuff. And neither team has been very great offensively so far this season. But the defense absolutely carries both of those teams. So that's where the Houston Rockets are kind of at statistically, compared to some of the other competition in the NBA. And here's the thing. I expect the defense to hold. The defense shouldn't go anywhere. That should be something the Rockets can maintain all year long, barring, knock on wood, any significant injuries to any of the key contributors up and down the roster. The offense, I fully expect to continue to get a little bit better. Even if the Rockets just improve to where they were last season when it came to shooting the basketball, right? Getting kind of as those 3-point percentages start to average out a little bit better, as guys start to, their efficiency starts to iron out a little bit, as Alperen Sengun gets better finishing in and around the rim, like all these little things that the Rockets could count on last season. Offensively, I could see a world where the Rockets absolutely continue creeping up that list and get into that top 10 category, and to be a legitimate playoff threat, to be considered usually a legitimate contender, you need to be top 10 in defense and top 10 in offense. And the Rockets have a chance to do that this season. They're not far off when you look at the stats behind it. So coming up, I want to get into, coming up, I want to highlight really quickly a couple of lineups for the Houston Rockets. Sorry, I got twisted up here at the end of the segment. I want to highlight a couple different lineups for the Houston Rockets this season so far, their most effective lineups to date, as well as get into some of the NBA Cup standing stuff, expectations for this final matchup with the Sacramento Kings, and a look at Fox Watch. Be on the lookout for De'Aaron Fox, a name that the Houston Rockets are absolutely monitoring as a potential trade target. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Look, how do you like to stay cozy during these winter months? For some, it could be wrapping up in a blanket with a mug of hot chocolate, watching a holiday movie with the family. Maybe it's the best time or best way to spend your time in the month of December. Therapy is a great way to bring yourself some of that comfort that never truly goes away, even when the seasons ultimately change. Look, I'm somebody that's done therapy in the past. I found it to be an incredibly cathartic experience to have an unbiased, professional third party walk me through some of the stuff that I was dealing with in my day-to-day life. So if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Find comfort this holiday season with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, I wanted to highlight really quickly here a couple of the best lineups for the Houston Rockets so far this season. Now, their starting lineup has been incredibly effective. The starting lineup, Fred, Jalen, Dylan, Jabari, and Alp, has a 10.4 net rating. A 113.3 offensive rating, a 102.9 defensive rating. They've been one of the best starting lineups in the NBA so far this season. That's despite the fact that Jalen Green has been, inconsistent for the last month or so, the efficiency taking a major hit there, and even Alperen Sengun, right, struggling to finish around the rim, not playing his best basketball yet. We haven't seen either of those two guys really play at their 99th percentile level so far this season, at least not consistently. And when or if that happens, then the starting lineup has kind of, I think, another gear that they can ultimately tap into. Elsewhere, though, for the Houston Rockets, two lineups that are actually better than their starting lineup both feature Amen Thompson in some capacity. Now, the sample size is a little bit smaller here. The starting lineups played 285 minutes together so far this season. These two lineups that I'm going to highlight, the first of which, 53 minutes played together, and that's Fred, Dylan, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Sengun. So 53 minutes played together. That is the best lineup for the Houston Rockets this season, with a 32.8 net rating, an offensive rating of 118.1, and a defensive rating of, get this, 85.3. That is unbelievable. Amin Thompson's impact when he's plugged in over Jalen Green with the rest of the starters has been monumental this season. But that's not the only case. The Rockets' other lineup featuring Amin Thompson that has also been fantastic is Amin Thompson in place of Fred VanVleet. And that lineup, not quite as dominant, but still really, really good. 27 minutes played together. They have a offensive rating of 98.3. Now, that's the concern, is the offensive rating absolutely plummets in this lineup with no Fred VanVleet on the court. But they have a defensive rating of 80 in 27 minutes played together, 18.3 net rating across the board there. So, look, we're nearing a point where Amin Thompson and Tari Eason, they've made, a name for themselves, the Terror Twins, and they impact the game coming off the bench, absolutely. But there is a drastic difference when you plug Amin Thompson into the starting lineup over Jalen Green. And again, I think it's maybe a little bit fool's gold, the Amin Thompson over Fred VanVleet lineup structure, again, because a 98.3 offensive rating is not something that you should be very excited about. Yes, the defensive rating with that lineup looks really good, but it's a limited sample size. And I don't think that the Rockets could realistically, I don't think you really want to rely on a lineup that's generating less than 100 points per 100 possessions as far as the offensive rating is concerned. But that lineup, Fred, Amin, DB, Jabari, and Sengun, that lineup is the real deal. We've seen Ime go to that lineup time and time again this season. We've seen him trust Amin Thompson to close out games. We've seen him close out halves. We've seen him play Amin Thompson for 16, 17, 18 straight minutes because he doesn't want to pull him out of the game because he's just that impactful. Shout out to Amin, man. He's been a revelation this season, and he's just in year 2. That's the crazy part. He's only going to keep getting better, guys. If Amin Thompson ever first off, Amin Thompson is absolutely, should be in the running. Both Amin and Tari should both be in the running for all NBA defensive team selections this season. And that's another reason that you want some more national media spotlight on the Rockets. You want national media, you want the talking heads discussing how good the Rockets are. You want them gassing up Amin Thompson and Tari Eason for their defensive contributions to the number 2 rated defense in the entire NBA. But aside from that, I mean, look, Amin Thompson, all NBA caliber defender right now. Sam Vecini was on his podcast the other day saying Amin Thompson might be the best defender in the NBA right now, or the best perimeter defender. I might have to put that disclaimer on there because Victor Wembanyama does still exist, unfortunately. But yeah, I just wanted to highlight those lineups because Amin's ability to impact the game has been absolutely incredible so far this season. Let's look really quickly. One other thing that I wanted to bring up before we get into the cup stuff, point differential for the Houston Rockets so far this season. They're 5th in the NBA in point differential. The only teams ahead of them are the Celtics, the Thunder, the Cavaliers, and the Grizzlies. The Rockets have a plus 8.3 point differential so far this season. Point differential matters because that shows you just kind of how much you're beating opponents by, right? Because it's one thing to look at offensive and defensive ratings and see how effective you've been, but the Rockets have been flat out they've been good. Having a plus 0.83 point differential is really solid, and being up there with some of those other legitimate contenders for this season shows you just how good the Houston Rockets have been so far. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the NBA Cup standings. The Houston Rockets playing their final Cup matchup against the Sacramento Kings Tuesday night. A late tip-off because it's a West Coast game, part of the Rockets' West Coast swing here. They've got the Kings, the Warriors, and I believe the Clippers later this week, so should be a fun slate of West Coast matchups. As it currently stands, it's still impossible to fully predict where the Rockets will ultimately land, but we have a pretty good idea of the picture, so I'm going to run a couple scenarios here for you. If the Rockets win this game against the Kings, they're guaranteed home court advantage in the quarterfinals of the NBA in-season tournament knockout round, right? So that means they'll have a home game against one of the other teams emerging from the Western Conference next week on Tuesday or Wednesday night. That's when the quarterfinals rounds are being held for the NBA Cup knockout stage. As it stands right now, their biggest competition are the Golden State Warriors, who are the only other undefeated team in group play so far in the Western Conference. If the Warriors also win their final game, which is against the Denver Nuggets, then it'll come down to point differential, which the Rockets have the best point differential right now in the Western Conference, plus 49 point differential as it currently stands. The Warriors only have a plus 12 point differential. So if somehow the Rockets won against the Kings and the Warriors won against the Nuggets, and the Warriors like absolutely blew out the Nuggets by like 40 plus points, which I doubt is going to happen, then the Rockets would be the 1 seed in that scenario, and they would be the team facing the wild card team coming out of the Western Conference, which as it currently stands, the wild card team could be any team. It's looking like it's going to be the Dallas Mavericks. That'll probably be the team that's going to be the wild card team coming out of the Western Conference. However, if the Mavs lose their final game and go 2-2, then the wild card team could be the San Antonio Spurs. That's the other team. That the Spurs finish with a 3-1 record in their group, which I believe their final game is against the Utah Jazz, if I'm not, no, the San Antonio Spurs final game is against the Phoenix Suns. So in West Group B, it's Spurs on the road against the Suns, and it's the Jazz on the road against the Thunder. So no idea who's going to finish at the top of West Group B, because right now the Suns are 2-1, the Thunder are 2-1, and the Spurs are 2-1, and I don't know who has the tiebreakers over each other off the top of my head on those groups. But Warriors are definitely in. Rockets are definitely in. They've both clinched. We're just talking about who's going to have home court advantage at this point, but it looks like there's a really strong chance that the Houston Rockets, if they take care of business tonight against the Sacramento Kings, then they will have home court advantage against whoever in the first game of, or the first stage of the knockout round for the in-season tournament. So that's exciting stuff there. Would love to be able to attend a home game against either the Mavericks or the Spurs. Would be a ton of fun in that first stage of the NBA tournament. So I'm bought in. I'm excited. I love this tournament stuff, man. This is really fun. I'm totally in on it. The marketing worked on me. I'm head over heels. I was skeptical about the in-season tournament at first, and now I'm all about it. Rockets are going to be lifting that in-season tournament cup over their heads in Las Vegas. We're manifesting that right here at Locked On Rockets. All right. Last thing I want to highlight here, the Sacramento Kings have been awful this season. They've been bad. This honestly might be they won't be easier than the Blazers because the Rockets just absolutely thumped the Blazers. But the Kings, I think they're really struggling because they just don't have a lot of size. They're very small across the board. They don't have length. They don't have great defenders up and down the lineup. I was not a big fan of the DeMar DeRozan acquisition to begin with. I thought it was a clunky fit in Sacramento. They have very little production coming off the bench. It's been a rough go of it for the Kings. And going into this offseason, there were some significant questions about De'Aaron Fox and his future in Sacramento, because I mean, he didn't sign. He had the opportunity to sign a contract extension this past offseason, didn't do it. And now there's like some thinking that, hey, I mean, De'Aaron Fox, originally it looked like it was probably going to be just, monetarily motivated, right? Money, incentivizing money. He could get a bigger extension, everything next offseason. However, now with the struggles that the Kings are facing, like there's a thought kind of permeating around NBA front offices and executives kind of monitoring the Fox situation. And I know for a fact that he's a guy that's been on the Houston Rockets radar over the last 6 months to a year or so, kind of, kicking the tires occasionally, taking a look at. And I cannot overstate how much I would love to have De'Aaron Fox on this Rockets team. If you're a Rockets fan and you want the Rockets to be able to make a trade for a established star level player, this offseason, it's not going to happen at this deadline. Won't happen then. So don't get that out of your brain right now. But next summer, man, being able to add Fox to this team, that could be the move that takes the Rockets over the top. The recipe is clear as day for success. The Rockets need an elite guard who can play, an elite lead guard who can bring that production on a night in, night out basis. Fred's been incredible, and Fred's been playing out of his mind through a significant stretch of this season. But we've also seen games where Fred doesn't show up, right? And it looks really rough. And the Rockets have had to lean heavily on Fred VanVleet this year. If they can get De'Aaron Fox in a Houston Rockets jersey, this is going to be a more souped up version, a defensive oriented version of what the Kings established with Fox and Sabonis. Sengun, who I would argue is already a better player than Domantas Sabonis, a more talented, more dynamic offensive player than Domantas Sabonis is. The two-man game between Fox and Sengun would be absolutely unreal. And then you put all the lengthy, athletic defenders around those two guys, and that's a team that's going to be contending for titles for a few years. So if you're a Rockets fan, you should be preying on the absolute downfall of the Sacramento Kings right here. And this game could be a little bit of an audition for the Houston Rockets, right? Where they go in, and if they put an absolute blowout win on the heads of the Sacramento Kings, then maybe De'Aaron Fox starts looking over the fence, grass is greener on the other side, chatting up some of the Rockets players. And he's like, hey man, maybe I come back to Houston. He played high school ball here. So just something to monitor, something to keep your eyes on as the season progresses, as the Kings continue to flounder at the bottom of the Western Conference. As far as the matchup goes, it's always really fun watching Alperen Sengun and Domantas Sabonis go head-to-head. That should be a really fun matchup in this game. Curious to see which, I'm not curious. I'm excited to see Amin Thompson checking De'Aaron Fox in this game. The guy who's kind of the X factor, though, for the Kings, Keegan Murray. If he gets hot, he can, carry a game. They've got Malik Monk, who can get hot off the bench. However, he was injected in the starting lineup recently, so we'll see if that holds. A lot of different things to watch for in this game. Hopefully we see, a bounce back performance from Jalen Green. Would like to see him kind of, get back into the flow of things offensively, rather than just letting the other guys dominate the basketball. Want to see him put his mark on some of these games rather than just willingly fading into the background of them. Hopefully Alperen Sengun's able to keep his 20-point double-double streak alive and going, continuing to garner some of that national media spotlight. But with that, looking forward to this Kings game. Should be a good one. Houston Rockets control their own destiny and can claim home court advantage in the quarterfinals of the NBA knockout round of the in-season tournament. They just got to get a win here against the Kings. I want all your thoughts from everything we discussed in today's episode. Let me know in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. Remember, the best way you can help us grow our show is to listen every single day on a podcast platform of your choosing. Like and subscribe on YouTube. Drop a comment. Subscribe to the newsletter. All that good stuff. But thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.